Hello again and welcome. I don't know why it is that I forget to turn on that ability to have you hear me, but today I did it in just seconds. So I guess I have a learning curve that is pretty soon not going to be a problem. So I'm glad that you're here. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. I'm Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, the Relationship Help Doctor, and you can always find me at transformingrelationship.com. And tonight we're going to be talking about, are these relentlessly difficult, toxic, narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic, borderline, histrionic people doing what they do that is nasty or difficult or hurtful or damaging on purpose? It's a question that comes up so frequently. And so I invite you to remember that the chat is always available for you so that you can say your experiences with this. You can also ask your questions. Feel free to do that at any time. It's a worthwhile opportunity for you because you may have a question about this, or you may want to tell me a little bit about some event that happened to you and maybe get my take on it, or tell us what you did that you're happy that you did, or maybe tell us what you did and you wish you'd done something differently because we've all had those moments, haven't we, when we have good hindsight, didn't quite think of it in the moment. And when we get more and more stressed and anxious from life with hijackals, that's what happens. It just becomes something that happens more frequently. We don't have the ability to be completely present or know exactly what to say or see the whole situation as it unfolds. So our hindsight may even dim a little bit after a while. So I've made lots of videos for you. You can find them here on my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, I invite you to do that and hit the little bell next to it so that you'll receive a notification when I am live online or when a new video is ready for you. And I encourage you also to invite your friends if you find value here in this live stream or in any of the videos that I prepared for you. And all my podcasts I also put on YouTube. If other people that you think would get some value from it, please invite them to subscribe as well. And I know sometimes that's a difficult thing to do because you kind of think like you're telling the other person there's something they need to know. But if it is comfortable for you to do that, it can be a really good resource and helpful to other folks. So as I said, tonight's topic is on, are these people being nasty on purpose? Do they get up in the morning having spent the night thinking about how they can hurt you and get up in the morning with a plan to do that? Many times I'm asked that question. They're so consistently damaging. Do they really do this on purpose? And it's a big question. I'm going to talk about many things that have to do with that question, that impact the answer to that question, and then I will answer it. So let's get on with talking about that. The most important thing that we have to have a little background about hijackals. Aside from a very small percentage who have some difficulties in their neurowiring at birth, a very small percentage of them, the rest of them are made. They're not born that way. And sometimes because it seems that the parent teaches the child how to be that, it looks like it's hereditary. But that's not the case, except in that small percentage of people. Those are the people who are deemed psychopathic. But generally, it's because hijackals are made. And they are born into environments that there may be a hijackal parent, or they may have some difficult situations in life, maybe not with their parents, maybe in a foster care situation, maybe moved around and felt unsafe. Oh, a whole host of things that I'm not going to talk about today, but that allows them to get the sense that in order to survive, in order to feel that they can survive, that they have to behave in certain ways. And these are the hijackal ways that they think they have to define. And so if you're born to a parent who has hijackal tendencies, you're born to a person who is only going to validate you when you make them look good. That's why when a hijackal has their partner, or they and their partner, whether the hijackal is male or female, when they and their partner are pregnant, it is a time usually of when they're out in public and people comment on them having a baby. They're all thrilled about it because look what I've done. Look what I've done. I'm being validated for this pregnancy, and that's good. And when the baby is taken out in public and everybody oohs and ahs and coos over the baby, they get more validation for what they've done. And so that gets a little more exciting to them. Then when that same baby cries all night, that same baby won't eat, that same baby gets sick, and the hijackal parent gets no validation for that baby, nobody knows what's going on, they have no use for that baby, things start to go sideways. And you may have some understanding that that might have happened to a person that you know who behaves in hijackal ways. So that's why I say that hijackals are made, they're not born. And that's important for us because if you have a hijackal parent, that hijackal parent wants to run everything. They want to control everything. They want to tell you what you can and can't do. They'll tell you what you think. They'll tell you what you need. They'll tell you what you want. They will tell you what's acceptable. Now, of course, parents are supposed to be the guides on the side, teaching children how to have a successful life and giving them values and teaching them how to have empathy and be kind and make it in the world in a healthy way for all concerned. But hijackal parents don't have that skill, so they're not going to be able to give that to their children. And that hijackal parent needs to run everything in order to feel like they're on top of everything. So what does that do to a child? Well, it causes them to be damaged in their way of seeing themselves in the world, seeing others in the world, and knowing how to have successful, healthy, equal, reciprocal, and mutual relationships. I'm sure you've heard me say before that there are 3 hallmarks of a healthy relationship, whether that relationship is a friend, family, sibling, parent, coworker. There's going to be equality, reciprocity, and mutuality. Yeah, maybe at work they're not equal in terms of their pay grade or their job title, but they're equal as human beings, and they treat each other in that way that is respectful and kind and honest and safe. And those are important things. But if you've been raised in a hijackal family and somebody else wants to rule the roost all the time, you're watching that modeling. That's how the big people do it. And so you are going to continue that when you grow up and become one of the big people. So that certainly happens. And then what happens in that whole business about attachment? You know, a couple of weeks ago, I did a whole program on, it was called Unattachable. And you might want to listen to that so you understand how attachment in the parental relationship affects the ability to have secure attachments in any romantic relationship and then build a family on that. And if we don't have a secure attachment, we have an insecure or anxious attachment. And if two people have insecure, anxious attachments and they come together, that's where you get all the wobbles. That's where you get all the concerns. That's where you get all the jockeying for position. That's where you get the nobody wants to solve a problem. Everybody's a little bit afraid, or somebody is really willing to jump in and rule the roost. And those things happen. So hijackals are made. They're not born. And so the modeling that they've had in their lives, the way that they have learned that they are safe, the way they have learned to make sure that they're never blamed for anything because that's unsafe. So they defer and deflect anything that looks like accountability, responsibility onto other people. They do that, and you know that, of course, because if you are with one, that's what they do now. So those are important things to understand. And one thing about hijackals and hijackal families, and if you have last week's live stream when we talked about hijackal in-laws, one big thing about hijackals in general is they get offended easily. Have you noticed that? You may have been the furthest thing from your mind to offend them, but they are so hypersensitive to being offended and jumping on you so they can blame you for something that you recognize the fact that they are truly easy to offend. And they will ascribe your desire to offend them to you. They will gaslight you, in fact, saying, of course you wanted to offend me. You know what sets me off, and it's your fault that I'm angry. And we get into all that kind of behavior. So it's important. Please say hello if you've joined us, and know that at any time, if something resonates or you have a question, just put it in the chat. I'll keep my eye on that. And if you want other information about me or want to see the blogs or the podcasts or whatever, just go to transformingrelationship.com. So we're talking today about, do these hijackals do things to hurt us on purpose? Are they intentional about what they do? So I'm just laying that foundation that if they were raised in a family where there were hijackal tendencies, they are going to take on those hijackal tendencies, or they are going to become passive and become the opposite of that. They're going to try to avoid all of those tendencies. They're going to weave and bob and maybe become a pretzel in order to not get any blame and stay out of the way of the hijackal parent. So they're learning those coping mechanisms. So either they're going to become a hijackal, or in my language, they're going to become hijackal bait. They're going to become someone that a hijackal thinks they can almost sense that they could have power over. So all of these things are happening when the hijackal in your life was made, and what happened to them to have that situation. So because they are so easily offended, everything seems and sounds like an attack to them. Do you have any familiarity with that? Have you ever said something to one of these people and you thought it was just a benign statement, and all of a sudden they're leaping up and blaming you for attacking them? I did a program on this the other day on a podcast, and I was giving an example of how, it could be something so innocuous. You might look out the window and say, it doesn't look like a great day for a picnic. And the hijackal will say, what's wrong? Don't you think I can choose a proper day? Now, there was no intention to be attacking. It was simply an observation of the weather. But hijackals do that. It's all about them, right? So therefore, you must be talking about them. And then they take it on. So you didn't intend to offend them, but they're certainly out to make you wrong and to suggest that you are less than because you are trying to get in their face. So, hi, Megan. She said, I thought my ex would do that when he received feedback from me that he didn't like as a tactic to have me stop talking or bring up something uncomfortable. I'm not sure what that is that you're referring to, but please feel free to say a little bit more. When a hijackal receives feedback from you, they believe everything is feedback. So the slightest raise of your eyebrow or an inflection in your voice or whatever, no, they're on high alert there that you were out to get them. You were setting them up. You were about to offend them or attack them, and they need to come back. You can say the most minute thing, but they're going to come back with an AK-15. You may have said something that they took wrongly, but they're going to squash you like a gnat. They don't have any finesse. They don't have any ability to become interested in your conversation. They have no willingness to entertain the fact that there are two sides to the story. They're just going to jump all over you. And that's their usual tactic, except, of course, when they want something. And when they want something, can't they be the most charming creatures on the planet? Yeah. And that's the person you fell in love with, and you think in that moment that that person you fell in love with has returned. Well, remember that the person you fell in love with and the person that just showed up in that example, those are not people who exist. That is them being a chameleon to get what they want. That person does not exist. So if you are living your life waiting for the person you fell in love with to return, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but they don't exist, so they're not coming back. And I know you want to believe that they are. And I know you're ever hopeful that they're going to show up. And you want to believe if they say they're going to make a change, you think, yes, this is the moment. It's actually happened. But don't get too excited. Just watch. Just breathe. Step back. Watch. And look for changes that are sustained. You won't find any. You may find sustainable change for a week or two. I've known people who have actually seen sustained change for a few months, particularly where infidelity was concerned. But the person didn't really change. They changed their tactics. And so the behavior came back. So, the question I posed at the beginning and the topic for tonight is, do hijackals hurt you on purpose? Well, I want to put this question at the back of your mind for the rest of tonight's live stream. Does it really matter? Does it matter if they intend to hurt you? The result is the same. So as we explore this, I want you to think about it, because hijackals are dishonest and selfish and manipulative. That's just basic. Dishonest, manipulative, selfish, and I'm sure you could add a lot of things to the list. Anybody want to add something to the list in the chat? So that's their underlying way of being. Dishonest, manipulative, selfish. And so with that's the case, if somebody behaves that way, does it matter how they got that way? Well, yes, you might like to understand, which I'm trying to help you do that tonight, but the result is what you have to deal with in the moment. Right in the moment. Yes, Bobby says disrespectful. Absolutely. Exploitative. Seductive. Charming. Repressive. I mean, there's so many words. I'm sure we could find them. Megan says, I used to think my ex was cleverly getting upset when given negative feedback by me as a tactic. Then I realized it was instinctual, but it didn't matter in the end. No, exactly. It is instinctual. It is so early in most of their development as humans that it is not on the level of language, it is not on the level of logic or rationalization. Our brain growth is such a long path. Our brain is not considered completely solidified until we're almost 30. And so the greatest plasticity and the greatest learning takes place before the age of 5, when the brain is growing the most. And that much of that time we don't have language. So we are responding to the looks and the feeling and the vibe and the energy and the words and the tone of the voice and the way we're handled and the eye contact or lack of it, the attention or lack of it, the response to us when we cry or need something or the lack of it. All of that is telling us who we are and how important we are or how not important we are. So when people are hearing negative messages and not getting what it is that they actually need for healthy, well-rounded development, they're going to have some coping strategies, and often that turns them into hijackals. So the question is well-founded. Does it really matter? Because in the moment, you have to respond to this behavior, and you have to decide what's okay with you and what's not. You have to get to the place where you are willing to examine what's okay with you, set boundaries around it, and then maintain those boundaries after you've expressed them clearly, and then express them. And if clearly the pattern is that the other person doesn't care about your boundaries, then you have to make a decision. So you have to have a consequence in there. And that's where most people fall down, is that consequence means that they have to take the reins and probably take the wrath as well and make a change. And that seems like a huge thing to do. So the question comes up, do these hijackal people have control over how they are? Because that's certainly part of the question about, are they doing it on purpose? So think for a minute. If the hijackal in your life behaves the same way at home and out in the community, or at home and at work, and the likelihood is that the answer is no. They don't behave the same way. They know that the behaviors that they exhibit at home would not fly well in the workplace. They would not get anywhere with those behaviors. In fact, the place they would most likely get is to be shown the door, right? They know that. Do they behave that way at church? Do they behave that way at Rotary? Do they behave that way at your children's school? Well, there's a dicey area, because sometimes they do. But the thing is, the underlying question is, if they know to not behave badly at work or church or school or in the community, and they behave badly at home, they are demonstrating to you that they have control. They know what they're doing. Now, Bobby says his excuse was that he was venting to me at home. Yeah, venting's one thing. Somebody says all that they have to say about something else that happens somewhere else. That's venting. But blame, that's a whole other thing. So Bobby, was he actually blaming you or taking it out on you, saying it was venting? Because those are two very different things. And sometimes hijackals say, well, I have to have somewhere to just let my hair down and say whatever I want to say. Well, not here. If you are your worst self around the people that you say you love the most, there's something awfully wrong with that equation, don't you think? It just doesn't make any sense. And Bobby says, yes, it was just an excuse to treat me badly. Well, that's what they do, right? They're not going to take any responsibility for their behavior, so they will treat you badly because they feel they've been treated poorly outside of the home. Or they'll do it because they didn't feel they had any power at work today, so they're going to have some power over you at home. And yes, they're choosing that behavior. Megan said, right, it was selective. He didn't use the same tactics at work, and I would cite that as an example of how he was purposefully punishing me with his behavior and that it was unfair. Yeah, I bet that really worked well, right, Megan? He just said, yes, honey, you're right. No, of course not. When you poke the bear, when you poke the hijackal, it just comes back at you double, triple. Excuse me. Tea time. Hello, Black Canary. We haven't seen you typing before. Welcome. The question, what if they show hostility to you at home and in public? Is that acceptable? No. It's absolutely not acceptable at any level to show hostility to you anywhere. I mean, you're supposedly the person that they love the most. What are they doing expressing hostility to you? Well, they're showing you who they are. They're showing their hand. If they do it in public, they're taking a great risk. But no, it is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable for there to be hostility. There is something wrong. You know, the Gottman Institute that does a lot of research into relationships, I may have mentioned it here before, but part of their research shows that a couple has a problem for 6 years usually before they get help. What if everybody was smart enough to say, if I've had this problem for 6 weeks, I'm going to get help? We would catch a lot of these hijackal behaviors a lot earlier, and we would be able to make wise decisions around them a lot earlier, particularly before we had children. It would be really smart, wouldn't it? But because we've been treated in certain ways in our lives, somehow this is acceptable to us. Or on the other hand, we think we can love them so much that they'll change. They just need nurturing. They need patience. They need compassion. They need to have someone in their life who sustains, loves them unconditionally, and then they'll relax and they'll be different. Well, we have to ask the Dr. Phil question at that moment. How's that working for you? Because it's not true. It's not true. They are going to behave at home however you allow them to. And if you don't have boundaries, or you don't begin to see that you need boundaries and you put them in place and those boundaries have consequences, then you're going to condone and enable their behaviors. I know that sounds kind of flat and harsh, but it's true. That's the bottom line. So Megan says, yes, he explained to me specifically, stating that if it was not for my behavior, he wouldn't act the way he does. Oh, Megan, that's such a prime example. That's what hijackals say all the time. It's your fault I'm behaving the way I am. And you just want to say to them, are you telling me you have no control over your own behavior? You can't make your own choices as to how to behave? But of course, that would be poking the hijackal, and you don't want to be doing that. But I'm sure it occurred to you, like, really, I'm that powerful? I can make you lose your cool like that? Yeah, it's crazy, and it's crazy making. So, yes, you know, if, like you say, he stated that if it was not for your behavior, he wouldn't act the way he does. So crazy, so convoluted, so not true. But of course, when you're with a hijackal, you get blamed for absolutely everything, because they are not going to take responsibility or be accountable for even one thing, unless it makes them look terrifically good to the public or to someone that they care about. Bobby says, this was big for me, learning that someone who was supposed to love me, care for me, protect me, had no right to treat me so awfully. Yeah, they have no right at all to treat you awfully. And yes, Megan, I love the Gottman research too. So it's important for us to get in touch with, okay, let's not beat ourselves up. If we've been with a hijackal, or we are with one, or we were raised by one, we just need to observe what happened. We just need to observe the behaviors. We need to observe our response to the behaviors. We need to say, okay, right this minute now, what's all right with me and what's not all right with me? Where do I need to shore up my boundaries? Where do I need to get clarity around what do I want this relationship to look like? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? And usually, am I going to get some help for it? And I'm always open to helping you. I work by video conferencing, so I have clients in many countries in the world. And if you want my help, just go to beaclient.com. Beaclient.com. And the reason that you need help, particularly with hijackals, is because you get so in it that you can't see it anymore. You can't tease it out. You can't clarify it because it's diminished you. And that's the purpose of the hijackal behavior, to diminish you, to make you feel small, to second guess yourself, question your sanity. Am I the one who has the problem? Am I creating all this? Is this my fault? And they're telling you it is. And so you begin to second guess yourself all the time. Megan says, Bobby, right, it made you and I feel so powerless to influence our supposed loved one to treat us any better. Yeah, that's true. Powerless and very unimportant. And that's the whole thing, because, I've shown you this little diagram before, but this is a diagram of a healthy relationship, right? It's two parts, each person inside the other person to a degree. And here is the relationship with a hijackal. And their whole deal is to isolate you and get you out of the circle, squish you to the wall. And that pretty much says it, doesn't it? That they're there to take up more and more space and have you take up less and less, and to remove your rights. They've got to have this control. Black Canary says, I know you'd never hit me, but I can't help feeling embarrassed when he yells at me and the kids in public. I keep reminding him that no one is going to hurt him and I'm his friend, but he still yells. Well, that's kind of you to try and calm him down and treat him as though he's a scared child, because that's the level at which he's operating at that moment. Because of all that brain development, when he's doing all of that, that's like a kid having a tantrum, and it's coming from abject fear. So it's very kind of you, Black Canary, to remind him that no one's going to hurt him and that you're his friend, but he's yelling at you. So I would suggest that the next thing to say to him is, I'm sorry, it's not okay for people to yell at me. And when people yell at me, I move away. And then proceed to move away. Go somewhere else. Wherever you are, walk elsewhere. Because then if he puts hands on you, people will see. And the further you get away from him, the more his yelling is going to attract attention. And eventually someone's going to come and intervene. They're going to ask you if you're all right. They're going to tell him to calm down. They're going to engage the children. So it's important for you to create physical distance and give him that warning. Say, it's not all right for me to be yelled at. Do it in public, because then you're safer than when you're at home. But do not do it with any threat in it. Just say, please calm down. I won't be yelled at. It's unacceptable to me. I don't want the children to hear or see this either. Please calm down and be quiet. And you just deliver these things in a very matter-of-fact tone, never in this kind of parenting tone, never in an ultimatum kind of way, but just in a very flat, matter-of-fact tone. And that can help you, Black Canary. And Megan says to Black Canary, that's a very humiliating experience and awful to have to endure. I actually left a car at a stoplight to get away from his yelling and had to figure out my ride home 10 miles away. Oh, I so know that one. I've done that too. One of the reasons that I talk about this so much is I was raised by 2 hijackals and I'm an only child. So, of course, I married a hijackal. and then had to figure it out and divorce and co-parent and all of that. So I have been there, done that. I have the ugly t-shirt and the nasty video. I have it all. So with a PhD in psychology, I decided that I was going to devote my practice to helping people, because I so know what this feels like. I know what it feels like to go to court repeatedly. I know all of those things, and that's why I do what I do. So yes, I have gotten out of that car and just walked away. So I understand that. And of course that's humiliating to them too, because in the moment they say, right, get out of here. And then all of a sudden they realize that maybe somebody saw that. But on the other hand, sometimes their desire to punish you is way greater than caring about what anybody saw, and they do let you walk 10 miles home. So I'm sorry that happened to you, Megan. But this is the way that hijackals go. And, you know, this public-private face that they put on things. I remember my mom, really a raving hijackal, as I've said, and it was always a conundrum to me. She was a fundraiser for hospice, and everybody hated to see her coming because she always had tickets to sell in her purse, and she was always going to strong-arm you into giving her money. But, you know, we'd go to events. She'd invite me to come and speak at a hospice event or something, and I would go and speak, and there would be my mother laughing and joking with people and all of this. And I'd say to her afterwards, you know, you're laughing and joking with other people, but you don't behave like that at all with me. And she said, of course, that's not true. I'm the same with everybody. And actually, they don't understand that they're not the same with everybody sometimes. But you've probably heard that from the hijackal. I wouldn't stand for that from anyone. Oh, they would. They would if they were going to lose their job, or they were going to look bad in an election, or they were not going to be seen as the pillar of the church or whatever. Yeah, they would change their behavior. But the consequences of not changing their behavior with you at home, they see as slim to none. So they don't care, because they think they're going to have ultimate power over you. And that's why I just did this podcast on coercive control. If you haven't seen or listened to that podcast yet, I really invite you to do it. It's on YouTube, or you can go to transformingrelationship.com and just click on podcast. You can hear it there. Coercive control is something that we need to have big conversations about, because this is all the stuff that is not the physical violence. It's the intimidation, it's the indignity, it's the disvaluing, it's the demeaning, it is the threatening, it is all that stuff that goes on in order to control you. And these things have to be understood at deep levels. And in the UK, in several countries in the UK, they actually have changed their laws to make it so that coercive control is a crime. Yay! I'm doing my bit here in the United States to move in that direction, help people understand the need to move in that direction. But it really behooves you to listen to that and understand what coercive control is, because it will help you identify what is not okay at any level. Really help you. And Black Canary says, Megan, weren't you scared? How were you so strong? It's not right. Yeah, it isn't right. But at some point, language isn't doing it. I'm sure that's what happened for Megan. There were no words left that were going to make any difference. So getting out of the car was a statement of, I am not going to engage in words any longer. And yes, it could be scary to be walking 10 miles, depending. I hope you weren't on some unlit country road, Megan, but I know why you did it. Megan said, I just cried and called the neighbors to pick me up. She talked to me about staying with him instead the whole way home. Oh, wrong neighbor. Sorry about that. But at least you were safe for a little while, and that was important. what happened when you got home is probably another whole story. So these things are really important for us to know. And hijackals like to threaten to abandon you. They want to play into your fear that you will not have them, as though they are the prize of all time. But they want to play into that, and so we have to get real with admitting that they're mean and they are abusive, and stop the track that is making up reasons and excuses and justifications and rationalizations for their behavior. Stop doing that. Observe their behavior. It is not okay with you. What are you going to do? Now, I've done lots of other videos and podcasts to help you, and blogs on transforming relationship, to help you with this, and I'll continue to do that. I have a new video series starting tomorrow, and it's called Ending Coercive Control. And it's just short videos to help identify the pieces of coercive control and what you need to know about it and what you can do about it. So it's very important that we understand that this threaten to abandon us will sometimes keep us stuck, and they do that on purpose for sure. Now, it's not that they particularly want you. I'm sorry, they didn't want me either. They didn't want us. It's that they want control of us. So it's not me as an individual human woman named Rhoberta Shaler. It is that I might be a person that they think they can have control over, and they want to find out how much they can exert control over me, and they will practice on me. Now, that, of course, doesn't happen in my life anymore, but it was a long time coming. I probably was 32 before I figured this all out. And still, I would attract men who were hijackals. It was just natural. I had to then learn how to, first of all, calibrate and not respond to hijackals. But then I had to make severe changes. So, don't even try it. Don't even try it. That energy was going out there so strongly. Don't even think about it. Right? And be willing to put out that energy. So these are important things. Hijackals will say they want their relationship to work. Well, why? Because they're basically lazy. They don't want to get more supply. They already got you, and they have somebody to have power over. Now, we all know that some of them like to have 2 or 3 other somebodies to have power and control over. And if they don't have actual other supply, they have prospects for supply, because they're very good at keeping prospects for supply. Maybe it's somebody they flirt with at work, or somebody they see at a convenience store, or whatever, but they will have prospects too. Not all of them cheat. Most of them do. They may not cheat physically, but they'll become emotionally unfaithful. They'll do things like that because they need this supply. They need the constant supply that tells them they've got it, that they're it, that they can get whatever they want, and they have that power. So that becomes very, very important to them. So hijackals come in 2 main varieties. And there are other varieties, but I just want to talk about these 2 tonight, just so you can see the bookends. On the one end, we have the grandiose, entitled, self-important, superior behaving hijackal, arrogant. And on the other end, we have the kind of passive, covert, vulnerable one. So this one on this end, they would say, they wouldn't apologize for anything, and they would say that you are a mess. This one on this end would say, oh, I don't know how you can do that, how you can hurt me so badly. Both of them are different kinds of control. One of them is covert. They're just going to blazing their way through. The other one is, oh, poor me, victim. Nobody ever lets me have what I want. Nobody's ever loved me. I don't know what's wrong with me. All of that. Did that just make your skin crawl a little bit? It did mine. Because there are those two basic ends of the spectrum of the way that hijackals behave. And one of the things that I really want to get your agreement about, and I'd love it if you'd give me your agreement in the chat just to put some affirmation behind it for yourself, but would you stop? Would you entertain first this idea, and then would you say yes to saying, I will not feel sorry for my abuser another moment? Could you bring yourself to say, I will not feel sorry for my abuser for another moment? Now, you may still be back a bit and not want to call this person an abuser, but a hijackal is an abuser. There is no other way about it. They're verbally abusive, they're emotionally abusive, they're probably financially abusive, they're likely spiritually abusive, and unfortunately, they may be physically and sexually abusive. But are you willing to say, I will not feel sorry for my abuser any longer? You need to come to that place, because now you know from our conversation that they have the ability to choose how they are. They have the ability to choose how they are, because they're not the way they are with you in other places. So could you stop feeling sorry for them? Bobby says she thinks hers was both the passive kind and the covert and the overt kind of hijackal. Alchemy High says, I feel that the way I was treated was intentionally malicious and designed to be punitive. I think they know. I agree with you. I agree with you. And Bobby said, I can say that, meaning that I won't feel sorry for my abuser any longer, but it's easier said than actually feeling it. Black Canary says, I will not feel sorry for my abuser. Yay! Yay! Work up to it. Work up to it, whether your abuser is a male or a female. Do not feel sorry for them. That is one of the tricks in their toolbox, is to get you to feel sorry for them. That's one of the ways that they keep you hooked. And if you can agree not to do that, that would be very important and helpful to you. So when you feel yourself slipping into the, oh, how can I take care of you? No, not going to do that. Okay, because I'm not going to feel sorry for this person. This is straight across. This is an adult to adult. It is not parent-child. It is not caretaker and cared for. This is two adults. Exactly. Not like a child. So it's very important. So I want to share my two big nuggets with you in life. The two things, the two out of the three most important things I can teach anyone. The first is that the truth is what you do. Can you get behind that idea? The truth is what you do. Your behavior is your belief. That's how you demonstrate your belief, through your behavior. So the truth is what you do. Yes? I think it's absolutely basic for us to become emotionally mature enough to realize that the truth is what we do, no matter what we say. No matter what we say we wish we had done, or that we plan to do differently. Yay, Megan. I will not feel sorry for my abuser any longer. Amen. Yay. Let us get an amen in here. So it's important for us to realize that the person not only does not need to be felt sorry for, but I am going to believe their behavior. I am going to believe their behavior. I'm not going to try and change their behavior. I'm going to believe it. That's who they are. I'm not going to be waiting for that mystical, loving love bomber that I met in the beginning, who shows up when the hijackal really wants something. I'm not going to believe that's the real person. I'm going to believe the real person is the person in front of me who's behaving in ways that are loathsome and mean and abusive and nasty. So the truth is what you do. Number one, therefore, your behavior is your belief. And therefore, number 2 is always believe behavior. ABB. Always believe behavior. That's the truth about someone. Their behavior is the truth. Not what they say they wish they'd said or that they meant to say or do or whatever. It's what they actually did. Like, we all make mistakes every now and again. I'm not being rigid about this. But when you look at a hijackal, you get the same bad behaviors over and over and over again. And the truth is what they do. So, if we believe those two things, then we can answer the question, do hijackals actually do this on purpose? Are they maliciously, intentionally nasty and destructive? And the answer is often. Absolutely often. It's an instinctive thing, as someone pointed out. They are intentionally malicious. It's the only way they know how to feel good in the world. And whatever they do to feel their need, to feel that they have power and control in the world, shows up in whatever way it shows up, but they're doing it in order to have that. Are they ever going to acknowledge it? No, only at their worst moments when they think they're going to lose you and they don't want to. That's not their style. But the big question is, does it matter? And I come back to that big question because you're asking the question, in my opinion, do they do it intentionally? Is because you'd like to feel sorry for them if they're not doing it intentionally. And that will change your way of dealing with them in a way that you say, oh, the poor thing. No, they are abusing you. End of story. Always believe behavior is being abused okay with you on any level. So yes, they mix it up. Sometimes they'll behave nicely, particularly in public, or when they really want something, or when they've just been validated somewhere else and they don't need you to do it. And that's lovely. But their bad behaviors are usually repeated. And they show no sorrow for having behaved that way. And they don't, if they even said they had some sorrow for it, they don't demonstrate they're sorry because they don't change their behavior. So there you have it. Yes, they behave that way intentionally because they don't behave that way everywhere. Do they set out to behave that way at the moment they're born? No, they're taught how to behave that way. They're taught how to survive in the world. But as adults, everybody has choice. But if you don't have the turn of mind to even entertain the fact that you could do life differently and be safe, then you won't entertain that. And that's mainly what's happened to hijackals, is they have no ability or willingness to entertain the fact that they could be safe doing life differently. So Bobby says, good behavior is mixed in with awful behavior to throw me off, to try to draw me in again. Exactly. And so they play this game. Come closer, stay away. Come here, go away. You don't know what's coming, right? You don't know what's coming. And Megan says, yes, the truth is what we do. I had to stop engaging verbally with him, become non-reactive. Otherwise, he enjoyed continuing the absolute negative behavior with me. Good for you. That's exactly the thing to do. Don't engage. The only way when someone wants to engage you in their hijackal or their passive-aggressive dance is don't engage. They'll have to dance alone. You can't play those games alone. So when you refuse to play and you refuse to let them get away with that, then things start to change. They may get very disruptive. They may get worse for a while. But when you hold the boundaries, when you say, no, this is not okay with me, then you start setting it up for a change. And then you start being empowered. That's why I tell people, they'll say, well, should I leave? I don't know. The fact is, are you empowered enough in your own life yet to make that decision? I always tell people, come and work with me. Let me find out What are your values? What's your vision for your life? What are your beliefs? How is this in alignment with how you're living? What's going on in your unique situation? Now, I only ask those questions if there's no physical or sexual abuse. If there's physical or sexual abuse, call the police and get the person removed. But if there isn't, then the thing is, do your own work first, because you don't want to walk out of a situation and end up sitting in some really substantially depleted circumstance saying, oh, I think I did that too quickly. I didn't take care of myself or my family. So if there isn't physical or sexual abuse, get the help to become empowered, to be clear, to know your next best steps, to know the system, to know how to protect your finances, to know how to get the attorney that will help you and will understand the system and will understand how to deal with hijackals. I often end up working with the attorneys of my clients to help them understand the other side. All of these things are important. And you want to be really well taken care of by yourself. So you want to take those steps to get some help, to be clear, empowered, taking care of everything that you can, make the decision. There are ways to go about it. Do not ever threaten to divorce a hijackal. You either divorce him or you don't. You divorce her or you don't. But don't threaten, because then you're playing their game. You don't want to get into that, right? So don't threaten. When you have become empowered and you can make the good decisions for yourself, and every situation is different, so the decisions for you depend on you, your circumstances, your children, the age of your children, all kinds of things. You want the best plan possible. And then you want to take supported action to get it. Like I told you, if you want my input for the first session, a 1-hour session, I only charge $97. Go to beaclient.com. We can talk, see what's up, what the best next steps for you, help clarify some of that. So all these things are important. If you're not ready to work with me, do my home program. Go to transformingrelationship.com, click on store. You'll see there my home study program called Seeing the Cycles. Now, it's not just a question of being able to see what's going on. It's a question of watching the videos, reading the articles, and then doing the worksheets to go really in depth as to what that behavior is doing in your life. Why is that acceptable to you on any level? What do you need to change? How do you need to change it? Really in-depth things there. So go and take the Seeing the Cycles program. So before we end, are there any other questions tonight? I'm really happy that you participated. I'm so glad that you were here. Please invite your friends to come every Monday night at 6 p.m. I think we've got all the technical glitches worked out. Yay! That's a good thing. I'm very happy about that. So many things for you. And I'm really here to support you. I hope you are really here to support you too. It's really tempting to make excuses and allowances for hijackal behavior. But even if you weren't able to write it down, think in your heart, I will no longer feel sorry for my abuser. Can you get behind that and really make that stick? And if you find yourself going to that place, come back to self-compassion and say, no, nobody treats me this way. This is not okay with me. This is unacceptable. Bobby says, thank you for all you do. You are so welcome. You know, I've been there and done that, Bobby. I know what it is to walk through this. I know every possible nasty alleyway. I've walked through it with hundreds of clients now. I know what we need to do. I know the support we need, and I'm here to help you on your journey. So I'm so glad that you were with me tonight, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, that little red button on your screen, and then there's a little bell. Hit that too, so you'll get a notification when tomorrow's video goes up on ending coercive control. Talk soon. Take good care of yourself.